It is Tuesday, March 3rd. This is the Christian Commute. I am your host, Seth Dunn, and you are on the way with me to pick up my daughter from soccer practice. School soccer practice, not my team soccer practice. And then it's back to work for me at the home office. But I did come to the office today, and we will have a show, though it will not be a good place to put this phone. Though it will not be a full show. It will not be a full show. I haven't got a question in the inbox in quite some time. Oh, what a disastrous start. My sticky note fell off the steering wheel into the floor. Now I can't see it. Let's see. All right, let me make sure no cars are coming. I don't want to reach down and pick up the sticky note and then pull out into the road and get T-boned. Let me see if I can fix it better. Hopefully it sticks now. It lost a little stickiness because I already had it stuck to my computer. There's just really no good place to put this phone with this wire in this car. I'm in my minivan because my truck didn't have any gas in it. Even though I much prefer the truck. There's going to be some pauses because I have some hot tea. Listen, guys, I'm tired. So I'm upping the caffeine intake to some afternoon caffeine because I got a long night ahead of me. So we're going to drink a little of this hot tea. It's so nice to have hot tea on a windy day. You guys can't tell it's windy. So like I said, sorry, no full show. No question in the inbox. Somebody's got to have a question about theology or apologetics to send to sethdunn88@gmail.com. Today's show title is Driscoll, a Different Standard. We're going to talk a little bit about Mark Driscoll having a female pastor come to his church and preach, albeit to women. Okay, but that's it. Listen, this episode is not going to be we ought not have female pastors. We've established that. This episode is not going to be we ought not have them come and preach at our church, even if we don't have female pastors at our church and they're only preaching to women. It's not going to be that. We're talking about the standards of people who go to Mark Driscoll's church or a church like it. That's what we're going to talk about. And we have the Bible chapter review. We're still in Luke chapter 11. Before we get to it, let's talk about the Why Project. The Why Project exists to encourage people not to go to Ayatollah of rock and rolla, seeker-sensitive, coffee bar churches. Oh, sorry, I messed it up. Ayatollah of rock and rolla, coffee bar. See, I'm messing it up already. One more time, and then I'm just going to say, forget about it. Seeker-sensitive, Ayatollah of rock and rolla, coffee bar goat churches, and the purple haze led by Pastor Electric Blue. Pastor Electric Blue is to tell these people, wake up! You need to leave this coffee bar goat church. You think you're at someplace good, but you're not. And here's an analysis as to why. And we've got whycrosspoint.com, whyrockbridge.com. Most importantly, I'd say whyelevation.com. And of course, whynorthpoint.org. So if you want to donate to the Why Project to keep those websites going, to keep them paid for, and to pay for the occasional geo-fenced targeted Facebook ad, send me some money. If you want to know how, email me. It's sethdunn88@gmail.com, and I'll give you my Venmo or my PayPal. What are the let's see, Zelle? We could do that. I'll tell you how. This is one of those things where you just like can't quickly click. Like, call now. Like, you got to really want to do it. Because let me tell you again, Christian Commute is not out here to raise money to put in my pocket. This is not one of those podcasters like, if you would like to partner with us, first of all, please pray for us. And then after you've given to your local church, if God's purposed in your heart, you think this is valuable, give to the Christian Commute. My expenses on the Christian Commute are, I don't even know, $600, $700 a year to pay for the podcast hosting service. I already have a phone. I already have a car. I'm already paying for the gas and oil. I already have to be in here. Okay? This is not about, I can't get by without you. I mean, there's free podcasting services out there. I just don't want to change all my addresses. Okay? I could get by without you. No, I mean, I do want you to listen. I don't want to just podcast to myself. But this is not one of these things where, like, I'm trying to raise money and make this my job. I just left my job. And then when I get home, I'm going to keep doing my job again in my house. You want to know what I'm doing at my job? This is fascinating stuff. If you wonder, what does he do every day before he talks about Christian theology and apologetics and tells us not to go to multi-campus, non-denom coffee bar churches? What does he do? I'm trying to write a report from a database that queries all the inventory transactions and gives me a running total on any given day I want of inventory quantity, where the inventory is, and most importantly, what the inventory is worth on the books. You might think that's super simple. Our ERP system makes it particularly difficult, and this project is my white whale. So I was working on it at the end of last month, and then I had to close the books today, and then I'm picking back up. Okay, if I ever finish it, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. Okay, because what do you do when you kill the white whale? Ahab never killed the white whale. He went down with it. What do you do, Wile E. Coyote, when you catch the roadrunner? I don't know. Maybe the Lord will take me home, having purpose that my time on this earth is finished. Of course, there's all the other important stuff I do that I hope the Lord considers. Like raising my family, coaching ball, and reporting the Christian community. Anyway, donate to the Y Project. That needs funding. I mean, I need funding. Let's face it. I got 6 kids. I need funding, but this podcast is not about donating to me. So if you want to know how to give, if you're really on board with the Y Project, and some of you might not be because I don't have a website, I should say, for the seeker-sensitive Go Church in your town. Well, it doesn't mean we can't make one. Let's get together on that. So send me an email about that. All right, now let's get to the Bible chapter review. Luke chapter 11, verses 42 through 44. Jesus is still condemning the Pharisees. They noticed he got invited to one's house for lunch. And then they noticed, it's like, well, you didn't ceremonially wash your hands. And Jesus said, you guys are rotten on the inside. Who cares if you wash your hands on the outside? That was his general point. And now he is continuing to make that point, talking about their behavior and their expectations, what they like and what they do. But woe to you, Pharisees, for you pay tithes of mint and rue and every kind of garden herb, and yet disregard justice and the love of God. But these are the things you should have done without neglecting others. Woe to you, Pharisees, For you love the chief seats in the synagogues and respectful greetings in the marketplaces. Woe to you! For you are like concealed tombs, and the people who walk over them are unaware of it. What in the world does that mean? Okay? You have to remember, under the ceremonial law of Judaism, if you walked through a graveyard, you were ceremonially unclean. So really the only reason for a Jew to go to a graveyard would be to bury somebody, but then you don't want to be near the graveyard. By the way, they didn't really have graveyards like we do now, because they had tombs where they put the dead bones, and then they would bury them in a cave later. But you didn't want to be near that, because it made you ceremonially unclean. They would not just a Pharisee, but any Jewish person didn't want to be around graveyards or dead bodies. So, if you see a tomb, you're going the other way, right? Oop, can't walk by that. Not going to do that. Any Jewish person, nope, not walking through a graveyard. This is weird for us as modern day Gentiles, because we walk through graveyards all the time. I mean, people have time to visit graves and put some flowers on it. That wasn't the thing that they did. Does anybody still do that? When I was a kid at Christmas time, my grandmother and all of my great aunts and great uncles who were still alive would go to the graveyard and visit their parents' graves. I don't think I've ever visited anybody's grave that's died. Like, I've never been to my grandmother and grandfather's grave after they died. Except my grandfather died first, so I went to his funeral. And then my grandmother died, and I went to the gravesite because they're buried next to each other. Same thing for my other set of grandparents. My grandmother died. We buried her. Then I never ever went there. Like East Side Memorial Gardens in Chattanooga. And then my granddad died, and I went there. And then my uncle's buried there too. Because it's like, and I'll go to my uncle's grave when my aunt dies. I don't know if anybody, why would I go there? They're not there. Their souls are in heaven. So I don't know why that's a thing. I don't know if it's a thing people still do. I know old people did it. They used to have a decoration day or a homecoming at these little churches with graveyards. I don't know. I don't do that. But the Jews definitely wouldn't do that. Because of the uncleanliness. But that's what Jesus is saying the Pharisees are like. You're like concealed tombs. People walk over them and they're unaware of it. Jesus is saying people don't know how wicked you are on the inside when you're sitting there in the chief seats in the synagogues and getting respectful greetings in the marketplace. You look good on the outside. People see you on the outside tithing of your spice garden. And Jesus said they should do these things. They should have been tithing on their spice garden. What does he say? He says these are things you should have done without neglecting the others. He's not saying tithing on your spice garden is bad. He's like, okay, you're giving, but you need to worry about this other stuff. And I want you to think about how the tedium of tithing on your spice garden, okay? It's tax season. Taxes are due April 15th. If you underpay your taxes by $3, you know what? The government's probably going to let it go. They're like, all right, it's not worth chasing after this guy for $3. They'll probably just write it off. Same thing happens in business, okay? If you're one of these big businesses, and I'll tell you a story, like when we at Georgia Pacific, when I worked at Georgia Pacific, I worked on the floor with Treasury because I was internal audit, and on our floor held Treasury, those guys on the other side. And they told me that a certain grocery store, which will remain unnamed, had figured out that if you short paid one of our invoices by 50 cents, we just let it go. So this grocery store just started short paying all their invoices by 50 cents. You got to remember they got thousands and thousands of invoices for all their stores. So Georgia Pacific is sending them paper towels and Dixie cups and plates and all the stuff Georgia Pacific makes, and they're just short paying an invoice by 50 cents. And they're probably doing it to all their vendors. So you think 50 cents is not a lot of money to save. But yeah, what if you got 100,000 invoices? Now it's significant. But the thing was, like, it's 50 cents. Who cares? Nobody's going to look for it. Now, we eventually figured it out, because computers can figure this out systematically and say, you guys are robbing us at 50 cents times a million. Stop it. But I'm bringing up the concept of materiality. Like, if you short somebody, like if I owe my friend $50 and I say, here, I got 45, he's like, oh, that's fine, just give me 45. You know, you'll buy my lunch later or something like that. That's how people think. And remember, in the Old Testament, what was the economy? What was the economy that the Jews had? It's an agrarian economy. And they're growing their harvest and they're tithing on that, literally a tenth of the harvest. Nowadays, people think, well, I made $100,000 this year, so I'm going to tithe $10,000, because we're thinking in terms of money. They were doing it in terms of goods, of actual produce. So when you got a big wheat harvest that you're gathering once a year, you're like, all right, hold 10%. Now think of the size of dill. It's called here, what is the New American Standard? Rue. I think it's cumin and other translations. Anybody ever see a little spice plant? Because if you're like me, you get your spices from the spice rack at the grocery store. And when you get married, you don't have any spices. And then you're making a recipe that calls for spice. So you go buy it once. And then that jar of spices sits in your cabinet for 50 years, and then you die and your kids throw it away. Okay, that's how spices are bought in this country, right? You just buy them once. Okay, so that's how I do it. But back then they didn't go to Ingles and have the spice rack. They had to grow their little spices. But a spice garden, little spice plants are little tiny plants. Okay, you don't have you're growing a spice garden. You know, that's not like an entire field of barley that you have. It's a spice garden at your house. For those of you who have them. So for those of you who do have spice gardens in your house, you might have like one pot in your backyard, or 2 or 3 pots growing your little spice plants, and they're tiny. And you get off one little bit, grind it down, and use it as a spice. So the Pharisees, because they want to be seen as holy, they are going to the trouble and the tedium that nobody else does, to tithe off of the increase of their spice garden. Okay, now spices were valuable back then. Okay, just like they cost like $6 or $7 a bottle. I don't know what a bottle of spice costs, because I haven't bought one in a long time. But you got to understand, it's rarer than, say, wheat and barley or stuff like that. The big cornmeal or stuff like that. When you buy a little jar and it's full of it. It's expensive. So I'm not saying it was cheap, because it wasn't. I'm saying imagine the tedium of tithing off your dill. Okay, because there's not a lot of dill. So you're the guy, look at that guy. You see Pharisee Joe over there in the front of the synagogue in the chief's seat. That guy, he knows the law so much. He tithes off of his spice garden. I saw him at the temple with a centimeter's worth of dill, tithing off the spice garden. Boy, what a holy guy. But what Jesus is saying is all that's on the outside that people see. And you love to be known for that. And you think you're so great because you do that. And you love it when you get the greeting and the marketplace. You know what I like? I don't know if this is prideful or not. Okay, I really like it. I like it when I go to the ball field and somebody says, "Hey, coach," that's not one of my current players. So I'll go to the ball field in baseball, which I don't even coach. I might go to the baseball field tonight, and somebody says, "Hey, coach," because they know I coach basketball and soccer. I'm in the fraternity of coaching. Okay? They don't say, "Hey, Seth," it's "Hey, coach." That's the title. It's meaningful to me. I like it. Is anybody, I bet pastors are like this too. They love to be out and tell, hey pastor, not hey Joe, hey Todd, hey Bob, hey pastor. Yeah, I'm a pastor, nobody else is. I hope they're not prideful like that. And then I'm not Nick Saban winning national championships at Alabama. I'm coaching rec ball at the local level. You know, I got my girls' 10U championship trophy right here. My 10-year-old girls beat the crap out of those other 10-year-old girls. But I mean, some of those girls still call me coach when they see me. I love it. Okay, I just do. It makes me feel good that they remember me as their coach. It's a greeting of respect. Okay, that's why I like it. Okay. So I'm sure we all have those greetings of respect that we get. And what Jesus is saying to the Pharisees here, you love it when you go to the grocery store and you get that respectful greeting. I'm going to say hi to this guy. This is the guy. This is a respectful guy right here. I'm walking down the aisles and ignoring all these other people, but I see the Pharisee. Oh, hey, Pharisee Joe. How's it going? I saw Pharisee Joe in the spice aisle at Ingles with only 9/10 of his deal because he gave the rest away. They love being seen and known for that, but they ignore justice. They don't care about people. They put all these laws and rules on people that they can't follow and hold them down and make them miserable. They don't do justice. That's a big deal. God does not like injustice. So Jesus is condemning them because they're wicked on the outside. And what makes it worse is that they do all these little things, like tithing on their deal. Remember that show, My Name is Earl? And the premise of the show was that Earl was a horrible person. He was a miscreant. And then he won the lottery. And instead of continuing to be a miscreant, he set out to right all the wrongs that he had done to people. It's sort of like Quantum Leap, except instead of going back in time and righting wrongs, you win the lottery and right wrongs. And the premise of My Name is Earl was that he was trying to pay off his karmic debt, which we know is not a real thing. But he won the lottery and something bad happened to him. He's like, I have all this bad karma from doing wrong my whole life. I'm making a list of all the people I've wronged and I'm going to make it up to them. Okay. Remember that show? If you're a horrible miscreant like Earl, and we all know these people, you don't care about justice, you steal from people, you cheat people, and you certainly don't tithe on all the stuff you're stealing. You're not tithing on your deal. You're outwardly bad and inwardly bad. Okay? You know what those people aren't? They're not phonies. That's what's so great about Arn Anderson, the Four Horsemen from wrestling. He was a bad guy, and he'd just come right out and say, well, I'm a bad guy, and we're going to kick your butt. The Four Horsemen, we're the best, and you better not mess with us or we'll beat you up. That's why people liked him as a heel. That's why people liked Ric Flair. He was a bad guy, but he didn't act like a good guy. He's like, I'm a horrible person, and I want to be mean. And that's who I am, okay? What's worse is phonies. And that's what Jesus is saying. You guys are hypocrites. You're fakes. And that's like doubly worse, don't you think? Jesus didn't say that. I'm just saying I think that's what we take from that. That's even worse. And with that, let's end the Bible chapter review. Want some application? Don't be a phony. Number one, don't be a miscreant. Don't be bad like Arn Anderson and My Name is Earl. Earl Hickey was the character's name. The real guy is a Scientologist, Jason Lee. Don't be a Scientologist either. And then don't be phony. Don't be an upstanding citizen who's secretly inside and phony. It would be like me if I like to be called coach everywhere, but then I didn't teach the bad kids how to play. And then if the rules say play the bad kids 30 minutes and I only played them 10 minutes. I'm supposed to be a coach, right? Oh, you won all these games. Oh, you've developed all these kids. Oh, yeah, but I wasn't fair to everybody. If you suck, I treat you like dirt and you don't get to play. No, that would make me bad. Oh, you love to be called coach, but you don't do anything for the bad kids. Seth, you shouldn't call them bad. Now listen, I'm gonna tell you this. That's just out there. Okay? There's bad kids. And a good coach, listen, Nick Saban doesn't have any bad players. Everybody's good. Okay? It's harder to coach against great players. Like in the NFL and the NBA, everybody's good. You're like, how do I beat these good people? There's no weak spots, right? When you get into college or even high school. But at the lower levels, it's like, all right, I got people on the other team I can exploit, but what am I going to do with my bad kids? That's part of it. If you don't think coaches are thinking of that, you're not. We all know, parents, if we have a bad kid on the team, we all know it. All right. Call them less skilled. Bad is bad, good is good. All right, let's leave the Bible chapter review right there. Now let's talk about Driscoll and a different standard. I almost don't know how to bring this up. So, Mark Driscoll, let's review his history, okay? He claimed that God spoke to him audibly and told him to do two things. One, marry his wife Grace, and two, plant a church, and that church would become Mars Hill Church. Okay? He had no theological training whatsoever. He had a communications degree. Okay? No formal theological training. Not a great church background. I grew up in church. Pretend I never went to seminary. I still grew up in church. I can still tell you all the doctrines. I might not know the Greek names of them, Latin names of them, but I can tell you what they are. I grew up in church, and you people who grew up in church, you can probably do the same. But he just decides to start his own church, and he does, Mars Hill Church, and it grows leaps and bounds. So much so that he gets multiple campuses of it, and then we say, see, that's a problem. He doesn't respect ecclesiology. And listen, he'd never even been ordained. It's not like he was in church and he got saved and that they gave the invitation. If anybody, you've been in these invitations they come up with. All right, listen, maybe some of you here, you've never been saved before. You'll come down and God's tugging at your heart and you want to come down and give your life to Jesus. We have counselors down here. And maybe some of you have been saved, but you know it's time to get baptized and you hadn't been baptized yet to identify with Jesus. We have counselors down here. And perhaps some of you have been called to the ministry. If you've been called to the ministry based on what I preached to you just now, come on down and say you've been called to the ministry. Right. He never even answered the invitation to go down to tell his church to say, I've been called to the ministry. So they say, all right, we're going to test you and disciple you. We're going to let you preach on Wednesday night and stuff like that. So if you go and tell your church, I've been called to the ministry, they'll say, okay, we'll start training you for it. And eventually, we'll ordain you. We'll lay hands on you. Nothing like that has not happened. He just said God told him to do it. He grew it into a multi-campus megachurch. He founded the Acts 29 church planting network. Listen, whenever these megachurch multi-campus guys do that, they're doing it to extend their influence and grow their brand. It's just like how you have these Andy Stanley franchise churches out there. You have corporate stores, which are North Point church churches like Brownsbridge and Buckhead Church, Woodstock City Church, and North Point Church. There's one in Gwinnett now. But then you have the corporate one, the franchise ones that do all the Andy Stanley stuff just like him and pay him a fee, but they're not under his control. That's like Acts 29. It's a network. Who wants to be like Driscoll? All right? Acts 29. Now, by the way, before I go through the litany of all the things that are awful about Mark Driscoll, remember Acts 29 has not only had to fire Driscoll, they just had a VP they had to let go who was having an affair for 7 years. And then they had another president guy who was like hard shepherding and was a horrible person. Like their leadership has turned over. Their top leadership has turned over from just wicked, sinful, awful men. And it starts with Driscoll. So if you have any knowledge of American evangelicalism, you know the story of Mark Driscoll. You have the William Wallace III thing, where Driscoll had been getting online on Mars Hill message boards under a pseudonym and saying all this horrible stuff. And then people found out it was him. All right? You had the plagiarism. He got caught plagiarizing somebody in a book. Janet Mefford caught him dead to rights. Plagiarism. He manipulated the New York Times bestseller book. So what did he do? He wrote a book with his wife, Grace, Real Marriage. And then what did he do? He preached a sermon series on real marriage based on his book. And then he had his church, Mars Hill, buy bulk copies of the book. So what happened when the bulk copies got bought? It shot up the New York Times bestseller list. But basically, you're buying your own books with your church's money. He did that. He had the porno vision. Remember, he got up to preach at Mars Hill and was like, I can touch people and see their sins. And I've done it. I can be in the room and see their sins. It's like, guys, this is the plot of The Dead Zone and the plot of Unbreakable. Okay? I wrote an article on that, the Unbreakable Mark Driscoll at Pulpit and Pen. It's a really old article. There's the outright just misogyny. Cover your kids' ears. Like telling women, like, go home and serve your husbands by giving them a blowjob. I mean, that's what he literally said. This is his preaching to women. Like, where do you get off talking about that? Okay? Where are you exegeting that from in the Bible? It's not Song of Solomon. Don't say it is. Okay? And they probably talk about that in Song of Solomon. But anyway, I could not imagine a more misogynist preacher out there. And he would, what were those? Is it Ed Hardy? He'd wear those Ed Hardy shirts, those tight Ed Hardy shirts. Man, we're masculine. He'd say the F word in his sermons. He was known as the cussing preacher. So anyway, Mars Hill just fell apart because he was such a horrible leader. He basically, his own elders at Mars Hill ran him out on the rails. So what did he do? Just went and started another church in Phoenix, but he rebranded himself. He used to be Young, Restless, and Reformed, but instead he went, I'm going to go to a Hillsong conference, which is the opposite of Young, Restless, and Reformed. I'm going to go there, and I'll get in with Brian Houston. And then he started, Calvinism's wrong, and all these Calvinist people are wrong. Like, you used to be the biggest Calvinist guy out here when the YRR was popular. Now that it's not, and you've fallen, what have you done? You've changed your brand. He changes his brand like Madonna. I think Jordan Hall calls him Mark Driscoll 3.0. Protestia put out an article the other day, like he's basically Fox News Mark Driscoll. He tries to act like he cares about whatever Fox News does. So he's still conservative. He's still a firebrand, but he just changes himself around. But remember, this is a big man's sorry. Men are the leader's top guy. And he invites a woman to preach at his church. Now, for context, she was preaching at a women's conference to a women's audience. Okay, but here's the deal. This woman calls herself a pastor. So she says she's a pastor. And we know women can't be pastors. So Protestia put out a tweet and a headline about this happening, and Mark Driscoll picked up on it, and now Mark Driscoll's in the pulpit condemning Protestia for being dishonest. And you think Protestia, they're trying to talk sense into people, and you just gotta say, wait. Is this what we're going to finally get the guy on? Remember Al Capone, the movie The Untouchables, but Al Capone, who was Al Capone? He was a gangster during Prohibition. So what did he take part in? Racketeering, murder, organized crime. And the feds couldn't pin anything on him. The local police didn't. Some of them were on his payroll. They're crooked. So you know how they finally got Al Capone? Tax evasion. That's what Al Capone went to jail for. They said, wait a minute, we know you're making all this money, but you haven't paid any taxes on it. Guys, do you know if you're a drug dealer or a bootlegger that you are obligated to pay tax? on your income from that? So if I'm a drug dealer and I import $10 million worth of cocaine and sell it for 20, I have $10 million of income. And if I don't report my $10 million of income from, I don't know, imports, and call it whatever I want on my tax reform, then they can get me for tax evasion because I've evaded my income tax. And that's how they got Al Capone on a non-violent white-collar crime. Not all the murder and organized crime. Income tax evasion. That's how they got it. So you think of someone like Mark Driscoll, who is just phony and horrible and terrible and just obviously unregenerate for all the reasons I just gave you. And you got to think, this is what we're going to get him now. I know he's renounced a bunch of things that he was preaching before, and he's changed his image. We know he's abjectly unqualified to pastor a church. He founded his own church. You can have like I'll talk about gas station churches that some guy just makes. Well, some guy just made Buc-ee's, and it's huge. So he started a gas station church, and it became Buc-ee's, all right? And then he had to close his Buc-ee's down and started a new gas station church. Remember Michael Scott on The Office, who's like, well, if we go out of business, Michael Scott Paper Company goes out of business, I'll just start another paper company called Scott Paper Company. And then Michael Paper Company. I have a million names. He's like, I'll just start a new one and a new one and a new one and a new one and a new one. That's what these people do. People start restaurants that fail, and they run unsuccessful restaurants their entire life. That's people do that. Mark Driscoll ran his church into the ground, proved himself biblically unqualified as a pastor, and just keeps calling himself a pastor. That's his Twitter handle, Pastor Mark. So then he goes to Scottsdale. Scottsdale's a nice place. Finds the conservatives there and starts Trinity Church and just keeps on going. And let me add this. Mark Driscoll claimed that his apostle was Robert Morris from Gateway Church. You know, the prosperity preacher who just got put in jail a few months ago for child molestation. That Robert Morris. And then Mark Driscoll would tell people, like, you can get an apostleship contract with me, and I'll be your apostle, mentor, leader guy. Okay? This is the way this man does business. And the people at Trinity Church in Scottsdale, Arizona, you know what they do? Every Sunday they line up to listen to this man and call him their pastor and give their money to the organization anyway. And you think, well, we got him now. He's finally had a female pastor preach at his church. Guys, they don't care. Do you think, I think still, even under the sexual revolution, it's still gay stuff. Do you think that people who have ignored his rap sheet, personality, and character for all these years and think it's totally cool, he can be a pastor, he can be my pastor, do you think they're going to care that he let a woman who calls herself a pastor preach at his church? Guys, he could have a woman come in there and preach. He could have Paula White come in there and preach on a Sunday morning, y'all. And he might lose 10 families, max. Because the standard of the people who show up every Sunday to Trinity Church, or a place like Trinity Church, like Greg Locke's Global Vision Bible Church, the standard of these people who keep showing up to these places, it's not a biblical one. They just want to hear somebody talk about things that they agree with, or generally agree with, in an entertaining way that makes them feel proud to be behind that guy. Some people vote for a politician just because of how he does speeches. They might not like his platform, but like that guy believes. It's like the time Ben Franklin went to hear George Whitefield speak, and they said, well, Franklin, what are you doing here? You can Google this. I don't think this is apocryphal. You know, what are you doing here? You're not a believer. And Franklin said, yeah, but he is, talking about Whitefield. People respect those convictions. If you've ever seen the movie Geronimo, I I think Matt Damon is in it. Robert Duvall is in it. Wes Studi plays Geronimo. For the last 30 years, if there's a movie about an Indian or a TV show about an Indian, one of the main important Indians will be played by Wes Studi. Okay? So Wes Studi plays Geronimo. And in the movie, Geronimo and his band of Apaches are killing settlers. They're killing the white settlers, so they have to call the army in. And Geronimo goes to one settlement, and these people are begging, oh, please don't kill us, Geronimo. We're not that bad. And this one guy's basically like, why are you apologizing? He's going to kill you anyway. And there's nothing before we came here. We're making this better. And you know what? Geronimo doesn't kill him. Because Geronimo respects that the guy didn't cower, that he said something with conviction. And that's what the people who have always followed Mark Driscoll like. He says things with conviction. Every day. And by the way, as someone with autism, I roll right over these people. Every day, people go out and they don't have the courage of their convictions. Not just moral convictions, but anything. These are the people who go to lunch with their work friends. And their work friends go to Panera Bread every day, and one day they want to go to Pizza Hut, and they can never say, guys, can we go to Pizza Hut? Because, well, I think Pizza Hut's better, it's not as expensive, they have more... No, they just can't say it. And then one day somebody comes along who's new to the group and says, guys, we go to Panera every day, let's go to Pizza Hut, man. Oh, okay, yeah. And then that guy's their hero, because he actually said something. And that's what Mark Driscoll has always done. I want to drop the F-bomb in the pulpit, and I don't care if society likes it, I'm going to say it. It's the same reason people like Donald Trump. He didn't care. So Mark Driscoll is up there preaching a brand of conservatism. Protestia calls it Fox News conservatism, and that's what those people in Scottsdale like. They don't care a lick about that female pastor. I gotta scare quote that female pastor preaching his church. I don't care. So you can't say, look, we're going to get Capone on tax evasion, because they don't care. Look at all the things he's ever done. And that list I gave you, by the way, credit where credit's due, Jordan Hall posted it to Driscoll on Twitter. He's like, look at all this stuff you've done, dude. So when you got to be careful, and this applies to the Y Project too, all right? Do you think I'm making a Y Project website here in Cartersville, for example, and the Cross Point people see it and thought, oh man, he's right, I'm getting out of there. And they shut down? No, they just opened up another campus over here, two exits down the road. They're still growing, okay? I'm under no illusions like, now I've identified all the problems and all the unbiblical things and everybody's going to listen. No, they're not. Because the people who go to places like that, in the first place, have a different standard for what's biblical. Where those Y Project sites are useful is the people who do have standards, you just show them like, hey, you missed this. Oh, you're right, I did miss it. That's a very small percentage. It's a very small percentage. Yeah, it's why people fill up Osteen's church. But I love going here. You know, it's prosperity gospel, right? And like one guy out of 1,000 is like, oh, you're right, I should never go here again. The rest are like, oh, I love it here. Because their standard is something other than the Bible. Now, we know Mark Driscoll doesn't meet the character standards at minimum of a pastor. And yes, there could be somebody out there in Scottsdale who just thinks this is another church and they don't know Mark Driscoll's checkered past, his immoral past, his disqualifying past. They don't know all the things he's done. Those are the people you tell them and they're like, oh no. Okay, yeah, there's some of those people. But by and large, guys, it's just people who have a standard other than the Bible. And you have to realize when you're addressing those people is some of them are never going to listen because their standard is their itching ears or somebody who makes them feel good. I bet there was a lot of people who listened to Jesus. Did you see him stick it to those Pharisees? He's standing up to these people that we don't like. We all been thinking about these guys. They're a bunch of, they're tithing on their spices. We know they don't care about people. And Jesus is finally calling them out. It's about time. We ought to make him king. Let's wave palm branches and shout Hosanna in the highest. Let's do that. Let's do that. And then when he's up on that cross, no, give us Barabbas. Give us Barabbas. Because people are fickle. So what's your standard, guys? What's your standard for your pastor? What's your standard for the leadership at your church? What's your standard for you and your family? Is it a biblical standard, or, as Michael Jackson said, the way you make me feel? All right, because that guy's a child molester. That shouldn't be your standard, okay? Thanks for listening to The Christian Commute. Lord willing, I'll be back with you again. Maybe Thursday, maybe Friday, maybe Tuesday, we'll see. As always, God bless. And as always, remember, Christianity is not about getting saved. It's about being saved.